Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM at 790 AM KFYO. Joining us on the phones right now, Congressman Jodey Arrington. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm doing well, just trying to get my head around the new political landscape I'm going to be working in. But I'd just like to say to your listeners, thank you so much for your confidence and trust and allowing me to continue to be your voice for West Texas values in Washington and to continue to hammer away at getting our country back. And, I'm optimistic. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. There's still opportunities for us in spite of losing the House, and we can talk more about that. But I'm honored and grateful and ready to go back to work.
Well, congratulations on your reelection. It was obviously a dominant performance for reelection, and I think the message was sent pretty clear that at least in this in your district in Texas 19, they wanted you to go back to work. And now, like you said, you do go back to a different political landscape. Nancy Pelosi or whoever on the Democratic side will be Speaker of the House. Overall, before we get into what it means for the Farm Bill and what it means for specific pieces of legislation, just what does it mean overall for your job?
Well, it means that all the good. We were very, very productive this first term. I think we were as blessed, and we delivered about as much as you can. I wish we could have done more on health care, but that was the Senate. So we did a lot out of the House. I'm glad we got the economy growing. I'm glad we got the military, the largest investment in 10 years they needed. We'll still be able to do a lot for our veterans in a bipartisan way, Chad. We're still going to be able to get a farm bill to the president. I think there are some things that were, because of the 60-vote rule in the Senate, we were going to have to find bipartisan consensus anyway. It's just the big things, like we need to fully repeal the mandates, taxes, and regulations on Obamacare, because already for the first time since Obamacare was passed, premiums are going down. That's because we have deregulated it. We repealed the mandate, and this administration has done a lot to roll it back. So we know that more government means higher cost, and we've got more competition and more choice in the marketplace in terms of health care. And we're actually seeing the needle move in the right direction. Costs are coming down. Those are the things I want, more free market, patient-centered solutions there. And I think that's going to be real tough to do, probably impossible now with the Nancy Pelosi-led House.
Yeah, I mean, that's out. I think future tax cuts, at least over the next 2 years, that's done, right? I mean, there's not.
That's right.
Yeah, you're not going to see any more tax cuts. Not from the, unless Democrats surprise us all. We're not going to see any more tax cuts. So let's talk, I guess, about what it is infrastructure. I know that was talked about early on in the Trump presidency, that maybe infrastructure is something that Democrats and Republicans and the president can all work together on. Is that something you're hearing that may be coming up soon?
Yeah, I think infrastructure is certainly at the top of the list for bipartisan, consensus and productivity. I'm worried about the spending. I think, we need infrastructure bill. We need the farm bill. We need the real infrastructure we need is along the border. That I don't think is going to happen, because we actually developed what I thought was a bipartisan legislation on border security and immigration reform, where we met the Democrats in terms of their desire to have temporary legal status for DACA, and we couldn't get a single Democrat to support it. I think, again, veterans, infrastructure, farm bills, there may be some other areas. Look, 80% of the bills we passed had both Republican and Democrat co-sponsors. So, and it was the most bipartisan Congress in 20 years. So I still believe there are things that we can do. It's just that, I'm worried about Nancy Pelosi having the sort of obstructionist resistance take and turns the House into a circus. I hope she doesn't, but I just believe that that's probably what's coming, and I think that's bad for our country, and I think it'll hurt our president.
Yeah.
So those are my concerns.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, do you think that, the investigations, I mean, is this going to be a priority, and what does that look like? Where, Maxine, there's talk about Maxine Waters, who's going to have a chairmanship. I mean, there's all kind of talk. So kind of direct us through what we will see as far as Democrats taking on leadership positions and what it means for the president.
Well, I think the overall tone and tenor, if you have a Pelosi-led House, is going to be more investigation, impeachment hearings. I do think, Chad, that if that's the direction they go, they can forget 2020. The president's going to win it because just like Kavanaugh blew up in their face, the American people, especially the independent and that middle group that we're all fighting for it in national elections, they thought the theatrics and the disorder and the dysfunction out of the Kavanaugh hearings was unacceptable, and I think they will feel the same if Nancy Pelosi goes that direction in the House. But yeah, you'll have leadership changes like the financial services, where we did a lot to restore free markets and to roll back Dodd-Frank, and then you have a Maxine Waters at the helm. I've heard from our community bankers; they're a little nervous. But look, we gained seats in the House, okay? We may have gained 4 or 5, in the Senate, rather. Yeah. So between the Senate having a stronger Republican hand there and with this president, I'm not worried that we're going to have big government policies from Nancy Pelosi or socialist Bernie Sanders policies. We're just not going to make the progress on the big things like health care and tax reform that we were making, and with all the momentum we had, I was hoping we could stay on that track. But history was a hard thing to overcome. The historical trends of losing seats with the party in the White House, and I think Trump mitigated a lot of that effect. We gained in the Senate. There's some positive things that came out of it, but we're just going to have to try to work where we can to solve problems in a bipartisan way, and then stand firm on our conservative principles and make sure that we don't go backwards into sort of that big government era of Obama-Pelosi.
Yeah, when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about the fallout from the election, but also the Farm Bill, what it means for the Farm Bill moving forward. Also, Congressman, I want to get your thoughts on some of the moves made yesterday for the Attorney General and others when we come back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, 95.1 FM and 790 AM, KFYO. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. We are joined again by Congressman Jodey Arrington, who did win re-election, of course, here in Texas 19. And Congressman, you've been working hard, I know, on the Farm Bill. It's kind of been stalled as Democrats have wanted to see what's going to happen after the election. Now we know. What do you anticipate now going forward for the Farm Bill?
I see the ag policies being worked out in a way that's still positive for our farmers and ranchers in terms of the safety net, the sort of critical infrastructure investment. I think that we're going to lose traction, what little traction we had on welfare to work reforms or the work requirements we put in for the food stamp program. And that was important to me. It was important to West Texas because, we're traditional American values. What does that mean? It doesn't just mean we support and respect the Constitution. It means that we believe in a work ethic, and we're losing that. And then we've created an entitlement state out of this country, and we've trapped people, as you and I have talked about before, in a dependence on government in a way that hurts generations of families. So the Senate didn't really have an appetite for that, even with the majority Republican. So we were really the little engine that could, and now we've lost that little engine has lost some steam. we've got to do something to help our farmers and ranchers because they are suffering with drought, with low prices, with historic high cost of production. Like I said before, the steepest decline in farm income since the Great Depression, and almost 50% bankruptcies up over the last few years. These guys are hurting big time. We're going to get a farm bill through. It just won't be as conservative. It won't be as strong. And, dadgummit, 85% of that farm bill is food stamp related in terms of funding, $70 billion. And, just disappointed that we're not going to get as much done there as our country needs us to get done. But we're going to help our farmers, and so there's an upside.
Any chance that cotton gets written out of the Farm Bill?
No way, no how. That was one of the biggest successes that I've had and we've had. And I say we because Chairman Conaway was the tip of the spear of that. But we worked hard to plug that hole. It is permanently restored. It is in law. And that safety net now covers the cotton producers in West Texas. And that was job number one. Job number two was securing the B-21, the next-gen bomber at Dias, which represented $1 million a day to their economy. And that's done, too. So we've had a great 2 years, first term. Things are going to slow down a little bit, but there's a whole lot we've got to do to carry the banner for traditional American values, for the Constitution, and for, conservatism and our cause of conservatism. And I'm going to continue to do that and be a happy warrior as I look for other opportunities to solve problems in a bipartisan way. 7 out of 8 of the bills that I introduced were introduced with a Democrat. The 2 that have become law of the land, signed by the president, helping our disabled veterans and rural veterans, were introduced and with a Democrat. My term limit bill is the only one introduced with a Democrat, supported by President Trump. So I feel like I've laid a good groundwork to get things done where I can. And then if there's any big government Pelosi policies or resistance shenanigans, I will be strong in my opposition there. And because, that's how I feel about it. And that's how my people believe back home. And we'll continue to get things done, make a difference, and make them proud.
What's going on within leadership for the Republicans?
Well, everybody's jockeying for the positions, the new leadership positions. Obviously, we won't have the speaker, but we'll have a leader, a whip, and a conference chair. I think it's too early to tell. I think McCarthy is probably going to be the guy that will remain as the leader of our conference. I think the upside to that is that he's got cotton, he's got oil and gas. His district economic interests look a lot like ours. He's got a great relationship with President Trump, and I think that's important because he's going to need our help. And I have stood with him in my first 2 terms, and I know Leader McCarthy stands with the president. Scalise will probably end up being the whip. He's strong, he's conservative, and he's a good friend. I think he'll probably end up as whip. And then my friend, former colleague in the Bush administration, Liz Cheney, is running for conference chair. She's a fellow freshman, now second termer, and she's strong and thinks she would do a good job as well.
When it comes to yesterday's movement at the Department of Justice, you had Jeff Sessions, who was asked to resign and submitted his letter of resignation. He's out. Any thoughts on that move?
I think Sessions was a staunch conservative in the Senate. I think he did a great job in the Senate. He was a loyal Trump supporter, one of the first guys to come out for Trump during the presidential. I was disappointed. Here's the pros and cons. The pros are he restored law and order. He was a champion for enforcement of immigration and drug laws. He was a tiger when it came to the gang activities, MS-13. I mean, he was excellent in those areas. But I tell you, I'm really disappointed in the fact that he did not root out the corruption and the political bias of the deep state, which I think is the biggest problem. And now it's kind of a carryover. I think it's hurt our president. I think it's hurt our efforts to advance the conservative agenda the people elected the president, me, and others to achieve. And so that's his downside. And I think the president is probably going to be well served to have a new chief law enforcement person at the helm of the Department of Justice. But I know Jeff Sessions is a good man. I just think it was a mistake to pull out of just about everything and hand the keys over to the career guys to let them sort of run the place that was already fraught with corruption. So hopefully the next person will begin rooting that out. The American people will be better served when that happens, not just the president.
Yeah. Visiting with Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the program. Have about 2 minutes maybe left in this segment. What are some of your, other than the Farm Bill, I know that's your main goal moving into the next couple, and probably sooner than the next couple of years, but that's your number one goal. What are a couple of other goals that you would like to see coming up within the next 2 years?
Well, the two big ones, or the three big ones, are going to be difficult now. Okay, I'm just going to say that we spend too much money. The fiscal situation is awful, and that's the biggest long-term threat. Border security is an immediate threat. That's going to be tough, and then healthcare. But what I want to continue to do and think I can is fight for the farmer and fight for our freedom fighters, our veterans, and make sure that the veterans continue to be well served and we deliver on our promises to them. And I predict we'll get even more legislation through that I've introduced that will help do right by the guys that risk their lives for this great experiment in liberty and democracy. So there's plenty of work to get done, and look, I'm still very positive about it. I'll continue to fight for West Texas.
Very good. Congressman Jodey Arrington, as always, appreciate your time. Congratulations. We're glad you're going back to Washington, D.C., and we'll see what we can get done on the Republican side.
Thanks, Chad. God bless. Go West Texas.
That's Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show.